Sabah everybody and welcome back. Today we're going to talk about a comparison between two budget-friendly smartphones that are offering us great capabilities, great features for a very small price. Both of them technically sub 300 euros, and both of them are actually recently announced and released in 2022. I'm talking about the Redmi Note 11 Pro 5G, the best of the Note 11 series from Redmi, and of course the Infinix Zero 5G. Both of these guys offer you a lot. Which one is the right one for you? Well, let's stick around the video and we'll see which one does that for us. This is TK, and let's go and check out this comparison. Like and subscribe, and make sure you hit that bell icon so that you're always notified to whenever we have new videos on the channel. So here we have both devices. Again, the Redmi Note 11 Pro 5G, the best model. There is a Pro edition that is not a 5G capable. This one is the 5G. So this one runs about 290 euros. And here on the right, we have the Infinix Zero 5G. It's a 5G enabled smartphone, and of course, running at about 250 euros. So again, depending on the market and availability, both of these devices are going to offer you a lot more than what you're paying for. Now, first off, what we have here is the brand new Redmi Note 11 Pro 5G. It's a large battery capacity, 5000 milliampere. Now, this one is supported with a 67-watt charger that is included in the box. So you definitely get the best technology as far as charging. Some of the other capabilities here on the bag, as far as the main sensor, is the 108 megapixel sensor. It's going to be the main one. An 8 megapixel ultra wide and a 2 megapixel macro lens. As far as the front facing camera, we have a 16 megapixel sensor that's going to give us the ability of using front facing camera for video and calls. We have a beautiful large 6.67 inch 1080p 120 hertz Super AMOLED display. So we have an AMOLED technology here with HDR10 support. And again, as I mentioned to you guys, running at 120 hertz as far as the highest refresh rate. The processor that we have here is the Snapdragon 695 5G. It's a 6nm processor. We have a couple of configurations: 64 6 gigabytes, 128 6 gigabytes, 128 8 gigabytes, and of course all of the storage is a UFS 2.2 technology. And of course we also have micro SD card support with a dedicated slot on the back. Now, switching it to the right, we'll notice that the power button and the fingerprint sensor are also both housed in the same place. So volume rocker, and at this point we have an IR blaster, one of the microphones, the top mounted speaker to marry the bottom one to give us stereo speakers. We also have a headphone jack here that's supported as well. On the left side we have a clean slate. On the bottom firing speaker, one of the additional microphone, USB-C for charging, data connectivity, and of course the SIM card, supporting 2 SIM cards or a SIM card and a memory card. Now, the battery, as I mentioned to you guys here, is a 5000 milliampere battery. We do not have wireless charging, but we are able to charge it with a 65-watt charger or 67-watt charger that is included in the box. So that's kind of like the general overall specification, and it sells for roughly about 290 euros, depending on the market that you're in. Now, switching it over to the Infinix Zero. Infinix Zero here, first I will say that the material on the back here actually does not come out very good in the picture, but this essentially feels almost like a fake leather backing. So the material is definitely very nice. If you're picking up a color, definitely make sure to pick this one. So this is basically called the Skylight Orange. There is a Horizon Blue and of course a Cosmic Black as well. Now, overall, what we're getting here is essentially a triple camera stack on the back, similar to what we saw there. The primary sensor here is a 48 megapixel sensor with a 13 megapixel telephoto lens, and of course a 2 megapixel that's going to be just the optical zoom assistance over there. Now, as far as the actual configuration in the back, 5000 milliampere battery, it is supported with a 33-watt charger that is included in the box. So Infinix does also include the charger in the box, although it's running at 33 watts as opposed to the 67 watts, and we'll talk a little bit more about that. On the front, we have a beautiful 6.78 inch display, slightly larger than what we get here. It is running an IPS LCD panel at 120 hertz with up to 500 nits of peak brightness. We get a little bit higher here on the Redmi, about the 700 over there. The processor that we're getting here is the MediaTek Dimensity 900. It's a 5G process, 6nm 5G capable processor. Configuration is pretty straightforward: 128 gigs of internal storage at UFS 3.1, and of course 8 gigabytes of RAM that we have in here on board with this. As far as the actual front-facing camera, 16 megapixel sensor is pretty much straightforward. We are able to actually, again, charge this with the 33-watt charger that comes in the box. So on the right side, similar experience. We have the power button and the fingerprint sensor in the same button. Volume rocker here at the top. We also have basically one of the microphones for the camera. On the left, we just have the dual SIM tray and SD card supporting option here. On the bottom, we have also a headphone jack, one of the microphones, USB-C connection, and of course the bottom firing speaker. Overall, we just went through kind of over the general specification between the two. The biggest difference that we're going to talk about overall here, let me go ahead and clear this out. If we have to kind of just look at it from a straight numbers to numbers, it is a slightly larger display. It is an IPS panel as opposed to a slightly smaller, both within the 6.6 to 6.7 inch display. So, I mean, we're not really talking massively different, but about basically 0.1 inches bigger and an IPS panel here. Both of them are 1080p and both of them are running at 120 frames per second. Now, the UI elements that we have in here are both built in on top of Android 11, so both of them are running their latest version of their UI, MIUI 13, and of course, if we jump in here, so as you see here, both of them running Android 11 under the hood, and of course, support it with their operating system. So here, this is the Infinix X6815, Infinix Zero, the Dimensity 900, 48 triple camera setup on the back, 128 internal storage, batteries 5000, 1080p panel, and of course, XOS version 10 on top of Android 11. Here we're running MIUI 13. This is the global edition of it. I didn't receive one update to this. 128 gigs of internal storage on this variant, and of course you're able to see some of the other specifications in here. The processor is the Snapdragon 695, as we talked about before. So overall, I think they very much provide us a very similar experience. I'll start off with the Geekbench, and mostly because I feel like a lot of people will benefit from understanding basically the horsepower that we're looking into here. Now, although both of them are technically very level-headed, I would say basically very close to each other, 685 to 687. And of course, we have a very close number here on the multi-core. The experience does actually change depending on what you're looking for and where you are in the world. And what I mean by this is they're not necessarily available in all the markets together. Overall, this system runs very nicely. Both of them, again, running a custom skin on top of Android. On the left side here, we have a more of a shelf available directly from Infinix with XOS, as opposed to the Google feed that we have normally in here, and that's going to be the normal system UI. Both of them support an app drawer or no app drawer. You can customize that and put them in there. And of course, we also have the different swipe down menus in here. If I swipe down from the middle here, we have the universal search. Swiping up from the top takes me into the notification toggles that we have in here. And this is typical to normal MIUI. If you swipe up from one side, you're able to open up one area. And if you swipe up from the other, it takes you directly into the settings. They both feature a lot of customizations, options to be able to customize and get everything set up correctly. Also, the ability of logging in with your own accounts to either one of these systems. So it allows you to actually have a very decent experience there. So jumping into the camera experience, which I feel like a lot of us are going to want to know, how do they perform? First and foremost, there is a difference in the capabilities of what we get here. The Snapdragon 695 is only capable of providing us 1080p recording on both the front-facing sensor and the back-facing sensor. Even though we have a 108 megapixel sensor on the back, that is going to be the best resolution that we're able to do there. We have a Pro mode, we have video, photo, portrait, and under more, we have the ability of using night mode, 108 full resolution, short video, panorama, document, and of course slow motion, time lapse, long exposure, and dual video, so front and back facing video at the same time. On here on the Infinix, because we are running the Dimensity 900, we're able to actually shoot 4K 30 frames per second from the main sensor on the back, the main 48, as well as the 16 megapixel sensor on the front. So 4K 30 is going to be the best resolution that you're able to get on both of those. And if we want to be able to just swipe it up from here, we have short videos, video, AI camera, that's the main camera app, beauty mode, portrait, super night mode, AR shot, and of course we have slow motion, pro mode, panorama, document, and time lapse. So depending on the experience that you're trying to go for, you're going to get a slightly different experience there. Let's go ahead and jump in real quick. I'm going to do a couple of videos showcasing the front-facing cameras, video recording, as well as audio on both the Infinix and the Redmi. And of course, we'll switch over to the main sensors on the back for the best video possible. Starting off with the main sensor here on the front, this is actually going to be kind of a consistent theme. 1080p, 30 frames per second is going to be the best that we can shoot here. And this is, again, what we've seen before with Xiaomi, even at the higher-end models. It's not something that is limited to what we have here. So regardless of the size of the sensor, 1080p is typically what we see here. Let's switch over to the main sensor on the back. Now, unfortunately, that means 1080p is going to be the exact same resolution that we get on the back. It doesn't really change much on this device. Even though we have a similar processor, the capabilities are limited to 1080p 30, but as you can see, it actually looks pretty decent. So we're using the main sensor right now with the brand new Redmi Note 11 Pro 5G. I'm going to start off with the front-facing camera on the Infinix Zero. Now, one really cool thing here is that we actually have 4K capabilities on both the front-facing camera and the back-facing sensor. And even though technically we can't go 4K 60, it's still pretty nice that it's consistent across. And this is something that we've had before with Infinix. Let's go ahead and switch over to the main sensor on the back. Now we switched over to the main sensor on the back. Again, 4K 30 is going to be the best that we can shoot. And of course, you can change it down to 1080, 720p. But the main resolution here, or the highest resolution you're going to be able to get here, is 4K 30 on the main sensor on the front, as well as on the back. Now, as you saw there, both of them are able to give us great experiences from the front-facing cameras and the back-facing cameras, regardless of the fact that one of them is 1080 and one of them 4K. Although keep in mind, this is a little bit of a more of a win on the Infinix, as it does go up all the way to 4K on both on the front and on the back, which is, again, a very rarity in its own. For now, we're going to go ahead and play a song. This is Alex Scrindo Jumbo by NCS Release, and as we typically do, volume 100%. And of course, both of them are going to be able to give us a slightly different experience. So I'm going to start off with the Redmi Note 11 Pro 5G, and of course, we're going to jump over to the Infinix.
Jack it up.
pretty good. Let's go ahead and switch over to the Infinix.
Jack it up.
Now, as you heard, both of them are definitely very loud. Although for stereo experience and a dedicated speaker for stereo, you're definitely going to notice that the Redmi Note 11 5G is, or Pro 5G definitely gives us slightly a better edge over here on this when we jump over to that experience. On the right, the Infinix sounded pretty loud, although it is, again, powered by a single firing speaker that is all the way at the bottom. So the overall experience is, again, stereo speakers to a mono speaker experience, and that could be a factor for you, especially for enjoying content. Now, both of them support a headphone jack, which is definitely a nice addition to most smartphones that we don't see now. Here's one here, and the other one has it on the bottom. And again, it's going to basically dictate some of the preferences that we're looking into there. Now, as I talked to you guys at the beginning, both of these smartphones feature very similar processors as far as the capabilities in gaming, and actually is rightfully so. Both of them are going to be very much the same experience. When it comes down to content consumption and viewing angles, let's go ahead and play a quick video here. So I'm playing the same video on both devices right now. This is my podcast from last weekend. This is the Android Bay over on the Android Bay channel. The overall performance or the experience difference here is going to come down basically to IPS versus AMOLED. The viewing angles on the Redmi Note 11 Pro 5G is definitely much better. As you could go kind of all the way down to the left side, you'll notice right there, and you're still able to see it. That is not dim the actual color. Everything stays the same. Sorry, it keeps wanting to flip over. But overall, what we're getting there is, if I flip it over to the other side here with the Infinix, you notice that the IPS panels start getting darker. You notice that the color shifts very heavily once you go sideways. So again, it comes down to the technology of the display and what you're getting there. Overall, they're both great devices, very comparable, very similar in experiences, with very few specific unique things that could make you go one way or the other. Okay, so we've talked about the audio performance, we've talked about the processing power, we've also talked about the configuration and the differences between both the Redmi Note 11 Pro 5G and the Infinix Zero. The one thing I will also say is it's also going to come down to basically availability and, of course, pricing and feature set that you're going to look at. The camera performance on both of these are going to be really good depending on the experiences that you're going in there. And technically, the Redmi does have a better camera system with a 108 megapixel sensor. But again, it is capped at 1080p 30 frames per second for video recording. So that's going to be kind of a little bit of a factor. On the Infinix, you have a 48 megapixel sensor, but that again gives you the ability of going to 4K 30 because of the D900. So at the end of the day, if we're talking just sheer horsepower, I feel like the D900 and the 695 are very comparable to each other. As far as UI elements, both of them give us the ability of playing games at 120 hertz refresh rate. Both of them have large capacity batteries. Again, the Redmi has a 67 watt charger as opposed to the 33 watt. Again, not to say that is one that is slow. It's just by definition, you're able to charge it up a little bit faster. The overall experience on here, both are still running Android 11. Hopefully we'll be able to see Android 12 on them very soon. And both of them running their own perspective skin on top of Android. So MIUI and of course XOS. Both of them actually, for the most part, kind of run about the same. As you're looking with the camera experiences that I'm sharing with you guys right now, you'll notice that the images from this will come out very nice. Video, as you saw there before, also the video and audio kind of come up really nice, and you're able to basically connect them. Both of them come with Google Play services. And I think the biggest limitation is the availability. And what I mean by this essentially is that Redmi is available in more countries across the world than Infinix at this moment. And I say this mostly because of just availability overall. And when you're setting up the device, it doesn't even have an option for the United States. So if you're thinking about picking this up and using it in the States, unfortunately, the Infinix is not an option for us right now. As far as the Redmi Note 11 Pro 5G, it does actually work in the US on LTE, but it does not pick up 5G. So 5G connectivity is not available, although on LTE, it did actually perform quite well. And as far as I mean, essentially it was able to connect and it gave me some decent speeds, not 5G speeds, but again, it's an imported device for sub $300. So you have to kind of set your expectations at that level. Both of them have a headphone jack. Both of them have the ability of expanding memory storage, although only one of them has stereo speakers. The Infinix has a mono speaker built into it, so that also may kind of change a little bit. The Infinix does have a larger display by slightly 0.1%, so essentially a 6.7 as opposed to a 6.6. So 7.8 to, so almost like a 6.8 to a 6.7 type of an experience. But I feel like at the end of the day, the Super AMOLED display that I saw on the brand new Redmi Note 11 Pro 5G is definitely a much better performer. Viewing angles were much better, and of course colors were a little bit richer. Nothing against the IPS, but it also has a higher brightness level at about 700 nits as opposed to what we got 500 or so on the Infinix Pro 5 or the Infinix Zero. So at the end of the day, would I recommend one over the other? I'm actually going to throw this back for you guys. Depending on where you are, if both of these devices are available, you're technically going to be doing pretty well with both of them. There's really not a lot to say that one just overshadows the other. It's just that one kind of wins in certain markets and the other one kind of wins in other specific area. But at the end of the day, they're both going to feature a large, beautiful, fast refresh rate display, a large capacity battery that can charge pretty fast, and of course, some great camera experiences on them that will give you great gaming as well as the ability of sharing content from them. Large megapixel cameras on the back. Last but not least, of course, I do have to give a kudos to Infinix for that fake leather on the orange model. It looks absolutely stunning, and the design on the back actually looks really nice. Reminds you a lot of an Oppo device like last year, the Find X3 Pro. And of course, Redmi is again another champ, a very great bang for the buck type of experience. You're not going to be disappointed. Let me know in the comments below, what do you think of both of these devices, and is one of them more appealing to you than the other? And I'd love to know what is the reason that you chose one over the other. Thank you very much. I'll see you in the next one.